Hey, MCE crew, I want to talk about a new trend that is threatening your number one asset. That trend is called the follow home robbery. Imagine you and your significant other. You're at a nice white tablecloth restaurant, 5-star. You're enjoying a nice dinner, Friday night. And you come out, valet pulls up with your nice car. You get into the car, you head for home. Unbeknownst to you, there is someone following you. They're gang members following you the whole way home. And when you get home, their intent is to rob you and worse, possibly. Now, you might say, well, what's this have to do with money changes everything? Well, like I said, it threatens your number one asset. We talked about in the previous video the fact that without your physical, mental, and spiritual well-being, then you can't go out here and be as efficient and as effective in, generating income, building a business, capturing financial independence. And God forbid, if you are injured beyond repair, and you leave this world by some criminal activity, that is done to you, then you certainly will have, your efforts in terms of money come to a screeching halt. In most cases, sure, you might have an insurance policy if you're smart that pays out to your family, but wouldn't you rather be here with them to build your dreams? Anyway, this follow home robbery stuff is real. They're putting a task force together out in LA to try to stop it. But what I'm concerned about is that this trend will grow. Just like you've seen the smash and grab robbery trend come out of California and start to grow across the country. The reasons for this are many. Okay, we're not really going to examine them here. We just know that it's a threat to hardworking people such as yourself. And we're going to talk about some solutions to it. Let's go over this. A spat of follow home robberies turned deadly this week. That's serious. Somebody lost their life, resulting in the murder of a 23-year-old man outside a restaurant on Sunset Boulevard on November 23rd. The Los Angeles Police Department responded to the homicide by announcing the formation of a follow-home task force. The county sheriff also declared his intention to do what it took to stop the growing trend. Violent crimes are on the rise in Los Angeles. And look, they're on the rise everywhere. I hate when these cities, when these police departments and these jive time mayors always say, well, violent crime is down. We recently had our boneheaded county executive say, well, violent crime is down in the county. Yeah, fool, but murder is up. Murder's the most violent crime. The fact that they bifurcate that and try to separate that out is trash, okay? The most violent thing you can do to somebody is murder them. So yeah, in my book, it's a violent crime. So violent crime is on the rise across this country. And we know it has to do with a lot of liberal policies, okay? You are not seeing this in more conservative areas. You're just not, all right? And a lot of people have made a lot of hay about this boy Rittenhouse getting off, okay? Let me tell you something. Anybody put themselves in that position, politics aside, okay, if you can stand here and honestly say that you wouldn't have defended yourself, then you have a serious problem. Because one of the main things about our humanity, all animals, is we have a sense of self-preservation. So to anyone who's got a big issue with that and says that they wouldn't have defended themselves, they're insane. Okay, let's continue. Police Chief Michael Moore said gang violence was an underlying influence to this whole thing. Law enforcement reported an increase of nearly 4% in violent crime since 2019, according to the latest law enforcement numbers released in October. The department has identified 133 robberies connected to the trend of suspects following victims home from Melrose Avenue, which is their jewelry district, and also following them home from nightclubs and high-end restaurants, Moore said this week. More quote is quoted as saying, the victims were being targeted based on high-end jewelry they were wearing or a high-end car they were driving, unquote. Last week, the LAPD reported that 6 gangs were involved in the violent follow-home robbery spree. All right, so what do you do about this? Well, look, man, I grew up in the city, and I grew up during the 80s, okay? And it was fun, and we had a good time. We were the kind of neighborhood where everybody was poor, and the kids really didn't know it because, although we might not have had what we wanted to eat, we were fed, okay? And even though our families were struggling, we had great parents. This is why I get so pissed off when people connect poverty to crime. Oh, they're committing crimes because they're poor. Bullshit. Again, we had a neighborhood full of poor people, and people were going to work even though the jobs weren't paying much. Okay, people were getting by. There was no rampant crime wave, crime syndicate just among people who happened to be poor. Okay, that was not my experience, and it was not the experience of many other people who grew up in situations that were economically deprived. Just because you're economically deprived does not mean you are morally bankrupt, okay? And the news media tries to connect that. Politicians do it too. It's disgusting. Last week, okay, we talked about the LAPD reporting the gang activity. When we look at the underlying influence of that street violence, those involved with gangs continue to be the highest area of concentration. So these gang members out in LA, they have a long history. They are well known and they play for keeps, okay? So if you are someone who's building a legitimate business or you're working somewhere and you're targeted by one of these gang members, man, the odds are not in your favor. So this is why I would not want to live in a city today, okay? I could lose every dime and I would go and get me a trailer in the outskirts of some place, on some acreage and do odd jobs. I'm serious. I would never want to move back to the city. It's too highly concentrated. And most big cities are run by liberals. In fact, I can't think of one that's not. They're run by liberals. And so the policies are anti-law-abiding citizen. Okay. I was on a program with a candidate for the state's attorney of Baltimore City. This was about a month ago. And she was asked, where does she stand? Now, Baltimore City, we just went over almost 310 murders, and we still got over a month to go in 2021. This woman was asked, if she would be an advocate for law-abiding citizens being able to carry firearms and get permits to carry firearms within the city limits. And she said no, okay? And so I'm like, immediately dismiss you, lady. You're not serious. Because for the woman who is getting off of her shift at Amazon in the middle of the night and has to catch a bus and walk a block to her house, man, can you imagine having her out there without the means to defend herself? Or if she takes it upon herself to have a firearm and she has to do what she has to do, now you're going to prosecute her? Okay, that's just really, really bizarre and criminal friendly. A lot of the liberal cities have very criminal friendly approaches to things. Look at Portland, okay? That's one of them. The number of people shot climbed to 1,203. And this is out in Los Angeles. So it's just like the OK Corral out there, man. People are doing what they want to do. The other thing that has an impact on this is the fact that we went through that whole insanity about defund the police. Now, look, police, the institution, is just like every other institution in the history of man. You have good people involved in it, and you have bad people involved in it. But guess what? We have a ton of crooks in Washington, D.C., in the Congress. And I never hear them talking about defund the Congress, okay? Because there are, bad apples among them. So to the extent that we have corrupt officers, officers who, engage in brutality, then we have to deal with that. Absolutely. But that is no reason to suggest you're going to defund the entire institution of the police and then put people who are economically depressed already in greater harm. That's what that is doing. Cori Bush, she's a congresswoman. I forget which state she's from, but she was one of the biggest advocates for defunding the police. Come to find out, she hired private security and then came out and said that she was basically special, more special than you. And so she needed the protection. Okay. You need to fend for yourself. Defund the police in your neighborhood. Okay. So that's what's going on with this. You've got to be very careful out there. This is not only happening in the United States, it's happening in the United Kingdom as well. I'm going to link to this article. It's got a lot to do with the decrease in police presence. Got a lot to do with police operating reactively now instead of proactively in a lot of cases because of all of the, stuff that we've been through in the last few years. So that's what's going on, folks. Be careful out there. You may want to check the laws in your area to figure out what self-defense measures you can take. Now, I know that there are some legal, not legal, but less than lethal, rather, options that you have. They have this gun called the Byrna gun. Look it up. I'll link to it in the description. It fires a projectile that, is painful but not lethal. Also has a projectile that, fires a chemical that will, make you, it acts like tear gas or, pepper spray and will give you time. Okay. If you cannot operate or cannot possess a firearm in your city, or wherever it is you live, there are other options. Tasers, okay? You got to check your local laws and see what the deal is. And if your local laws do not allow you to protect your number one asset, then what you need to do is you probably need to say, to hell with these guys. I got to make plans to get the hell out of here and take your tax money with you, all right? Baltimore City is realizing an exodus. That's why our murder rate, I'm telling you, this is what's going to happen. Our numbskull mayor down in Baltimore City is going to come out if the murder rate is less than what it was last year or the year before. He'll say, oh, well, we have fewer murders. And okay, good on the face of it, but we're losing population also. So that means the percentage could still be exactly the same as what it has been in previous years. But these politicians don't understand things like division, percent attainment, these types of, mathematical principles. So I want you to protect yourself. I want you to protect your family and be safe. And that might mean picking up stakes and moving into an area that respects your sovereign right to defend your property. And your human body is the first piece of property you owned. And it is by far the most important. Guys, I will talk to you soon.